to give you 3 simple techniques for each of these topics. And then, of course, we can discuss later on after the presentation if you have more questions. So about me, my name is Anne. So I'm a business coach specialized in book coaching, book coaches and publishing professionals. I come in with 10 plus years of experience in business consulting, both in the public and the private sector. And I organize every month a free business clinic for book coaches. So it happens every third Thursday of the month. You can access that without any issue. There's no sales pitch or anything like that. It's just giving you advice on your business. And to join these, you can sign up for my newsletter. Bev can certainly send you the link if you're interested. So let's start with the first one, is how to structure your group offering. So I am going to crush all of your hopes here. I am not going to give you the ideal way of setting up a group program, just simply because a group offering or any offering in your coaching business, because there's simply not one system that can fit to everyone. We have these ideas that, for example, you have to have an individual coaching program and then a group program and then courses or anything like that. But really, this is your business. It's your choice. So it's up to you to choose how you're going to set up your offers. What I am going to give you is a couple of starting points. So the first one is know your writer. I know this is something you hear again and again and again, but I cannot repeat it, how important it is, because you need to develop the right offer for the right audience. I'm going to take an example here. For example, the business book coach and the literary fiction book coach. They both are book coaches, but they both work with a very different audience. When someone comes to a business book coach, the idea is not to spend 2 years on developing their book. They usually want to go quick. They want to have a book out there, or at least a first draft in the first 3 to 6 months. However, if we take, for example, a literary fiction book coach, in that case, that might be someone who says, okay, I really want to take that time. I need 2 years to really work on that draft. So you see the audience is very different, and your offer will be very different as well. I can imagine that, for example, a business book coach will say, okay, I know that you need very intense support, so I'm offering you Voxer support. You can send me texts or messages at any time, and I can give you a quick reply. A literary fiction book coach might say, okay, this is not something that my clients really ask. They just want to have that time to digest their book, to write. So you see that there's already that idea of what do I offer, what I don't offer in function of my client. The second one is to think about your offer in function of your lifestyle. Of course, it's very important that you offer what your client wants, but you also have to think about your lifestyle and your preferences. For me here, the best example is the group program. We hear that the group program, it is something that you absolutely have to have in your business. You don't. You can choose to have a group program, but you can choose not to have a group program. It will depend on your lifestyle. For example, I worked with a book coach and she was very adamant. She didn't want to do individual coaching. She only wanted to do group coaching. So there you have the other opposite. And one of the reasons she did it, because she was traveling all around, sometimes internet was very bad. So she said, like, I cannot all the time be thinking of having those individual coaching calls in good conditions. I prefer to have like once a week, I have that group coaching call and that's it. So it's really thinking about what works for you and how can you build your offer around that lifestyle and your personality. The third point that I want to give it you is the clarity in results. So this is also one that I see lots of book coaches will make mistakes on because they're thinking, okay, I niche down, I want to focus, for example, on literary fiction. But then you see they will develop a lot of offers because it's not very clear what is the main result that they want to help their writer with. If the main result, maybe we can take again the example of the business book coach, is to publish that book, and the book has to be published in like 3 to 6 months, or at least the first draft. I think it's probably a little bit too much to say we can publish a book in 3 to 6 months, but hey. So you will develop your entire offer based on that result. 6 months, first draft, how I'm going to build up my offer. For example, first month, I will say, okay, we need to have that plan, that structure of your book. So you need more support. We will have a call every week to make sure that you have that structure. And then month 2, you can start writing. You need less of my support. If you go back to the literary fiction book coach example, there it might be, okay, this person really just needs the time to think about their draft, about their structure, going through their plan. So my support will be very different. I will just offer, for example, 1 call every month or 2 calls that first month. And then the next month we do it once every month. They send me that kind of amount of pages before we have the call and so on. So here it's really knowing your writer, knowing yourself, but also knowing where you want to bring your writer. And based upon that, you will be able to set up your offers. Do keep in mind, again, it's your business, it's your choice. So there is no perfect offer system or anything like that. You really have to make that choice yourself in function of your own business, your client, and what's your objective with your program. So now we've talked about how to structure your coaching offering, how to find more clients. So this is, again, one of those huge topics. And again, one of the advantages you have as a business owner is all up to you. You can make all of your choices. It's very threatening as well, because all the choices you make, if you make a bad choice, it's all up to you. If you make a good choice, it's also all up to you, but people are not necessarily cheering with you on the sidelines. But I hope that with these little tips, you might see some guidelines for yourself on where you could go. First one, micro community outreach. Those of you who have been following me, you know I am very, very, very big on niche. The more niche you can go, the better it is. I found a very good example while I was preparing this presentation on romance writers. So in New Zealand and Australia, you have the Romance Writers Association. So if you're a romance book coach, you could say, okay, this is the first step to go to. However, when you go on Reddit, there are so many subreddits on romance writers. There's, for example, spicy romance, there's romantasy, there's gothic romance. And that is those kind of little niches where you won't necessarily find a lot of book coaches. I was on the Reddit, because I love Reddit, but when you go on Reddit, you have the romance chat. There are a couple of book coaches out there, but from the moment you go on the subreddits, there are very much less book coaches on there. So think about how you could maybe niche in a specific genre or a specific audience. It doesn't necessarily have to be genre, it can also be an audience, and where you can find your audience and be in that micro community of being the big fish in the small pond and not the small pond in the big fish. A second one is clear customer cycle. So this is not something that people generally like to hear because they want to hear the marketing tip to have 10 clients by tomorrow. It's very important to have all those marketing tips, but it's also very important that you have your basics in your business up to working. And I see lots of book coaches. The idea is, I need to have clients. Okay, great. So they go out to look for their clients, but then what? They start a conversation and they don't know where they want to take their writer. For example, we talked about LinkedIn. I see lots of book coaches. Let's connect. Okay, great. You connected with your writer. Then what? Of course, you can talk about your lead magnet, but you have to have your system in place of like, okay, I want to work with these kind of people. I want to offer them this, and this is how I'm going to bring them to my offer. So if we take an example, the business book coach. I'm a business book coach. I will take your example, Beth, because you're always a very easy example. Beth wants to work with people who are in a second career and who are 50 plus. So she will target those people. Where does she want to bring them? She wants them to bring them to the stage. They want to write their book in a limited time span. So how is it going to do? A lead magnet, then we get a first offer, a second offer, a third offer. She knows exactly where she brings the client, and it will make it much easier for you if you know, this is my point A and this is my point B. I know where to bring my person. So I see it's not about having all the offers out there. It's just really knowing for you in your mind, okay, this is the customer cycle. Even after you've worked with the person who written the book, they will definitely want to write a second, third, fourth book. But how do you make sure that they come back to you? How do they get into your customer cycle? Third, last but not least, one resource, one action. So that connects a little bit with what we had previously. People are lazy. they don't want to spend in half an hour on figuring out what exactly is that you're offering. How do they get in contact with you? They want to make it very clear. So that's why I always advise that you have one resource and one resource only on which you really focus to get your people into your cycle. It doesn't mean that you have to have just one offer afterwards. You can have multiple offers, but it's again making sure that that customer cycle is very, very clear. Of like, in my case, for example, I have my business clinic. That's the only thing I talk about. So once I get people in my business clinic, they sign up for my newsletter, and from there, I get them into my cycle. And that's the same for you. You need to find, okay, this is, for example, my checklist. This is, for example, my clinic for writers who have a problem. And this is the one resource I will talk about and make it easy for people, because then when they get in contact with you, for example, on LinkedIn, you can say to them, okay, if you have a problem with your writing, you're a bit stuck, jump on the clinic and we will have a little chat. And it makes it easy for them because they see the value of it right away and they see which way they have to go. They don't have to think too much. So I'm talking a lot about clinics, just simply because I think today lead magnets don't seem to work that much anymore, at least the ones in the traditional format of like the checklist or the 10 tips to start writing. It worked for a while ago, I think, before this, but now people want to have that immediate gratification. There are lots of very similar lead magnets out there. So it's important also to be able to distinguish yourself. And I actually recorded a podcast episode this morning where they talked about a capsule podcast. So this could also be a lead magnet. And the advice is here to, for example, record 4 or 5 podcast episodes on a very specific aspect in your from your expertise, and then you sit it there and you use that as a lead magnet. So there's a lot of new things that you can try without having to necessarily go to that PDF lead magnet that had been used so much before, and that does not necessarily work anymore. That said, my conclusion is your business, your choice. So it's very frightening to know that this is your choice, that whatever you do in your business, you can choose that. But it is such a true thing as well that by finding the one thing that works for you, you will see it can really make a difference in your business. Well, so your business, your choice, that would be my conclusion. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer them.
Okay, so if you could stop sharing, there we go. So lots of things there. So I'm sure there's people who want to just pick up some threads there and continue. So it's kind of open conversation from here. So
yeah, I tried to keep it simple, but that's such a big topic.
yeah, so I think we can all unmute ourselves. And has anyone got a question they want to start with? Yeah, Shannon.
I would like to hear a little bit more about what you do, like with the idea of the writing clinic, and like what does that look like for like bringing people in?
So the writing clinic, the way I see it is it will replace your lead magnet. So instead of having that 10 tabs, you can every month set up, or every month or 2 months, it depends again on your lifestyle, how you want it. And you say, okay, there's no engagement, you come into the clinic, it's free, and you give some tips on the writing. So for example, I come in and say like, yeah, I've written a blog. How do I go on to with the writer's block, or I don't know what to write about, or I don't know how to do my structure. And so the way I'm talking here about myself, so it can also depend on how you want to do it. But I record the business clinic, I put them on YouTube. I use the fragments as well to write LinkedIn posts about it. And that it's an easy way to have free content, if I may say. And on top of that, it shows others as well what you give as a free expertise. So it's really finding that balance between you getting a new writer, showing what you can do for them concretely, but also keeping it very limited in the sense that you don't want to end up with brain pickers. And this is an excellent way. Like I've had many book coaches who contact me and say, oh, I don't have the financial means now, but can I ask you a question? I just like come to the business clinic. So one, you have your free publicity and free content. 2, you have the brain pickers who can come up there. And generally they drop off once they come because they see like, yeah, this is not the place where you give free coaching calls. But the third one is that I have found it so efficient. I've had business clinics where people come on, I ask a question, and right after they will ask me if we can have an introduction chat, just simply because it gives them that first that first show, okay, what can I exactly do for you? Because I feel like, especially for me on LinkedIn, there's lots of people that say, oh, you're very different than what I imagined on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, apparently I come over as someone very cold and hyper professional, but then when they come on the business, they go, oh, it's very different. So I feel like it also helps people to really connect with yourself. However, there are some downsides to it. First of all, you have to be very clear how often you do it, what time you put in it. So you can always do like a presentation, what I do. But you can also decide, I just do that, that 45 minutes every month. People come in and they can ask me any question. And the third one, like you say, don't hesitate as well at the end to say, okay, this is what I offer, or this is where I could help you. When someone asks a question in the business clinic, I will also follow up, giving them some other resources and bringing them saying, okay, this is what I offer as well. And as a minimum, get them on your newsletter, because you also don't want to end up of like having people just dropping in, and then there will always be people like this who will drop in and out, but you want to keep them in your newsletter and in your universe. Of course, you need to have an active newsletter, but that's a whole other discussion. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I'd really recommend your business clinics. And I've been on a couple, and I can't always make them, but and sometimes there's only one or two of us on the group. I think there's always.
Yeah, exactly.
But the conversation is so much richer if there's only a couple. So I think when you run something, you think, oh, they've only got one or two people, but those one or two people might be just the perfect people for you, and because they get some exclusive time with you, they're probably going to be more inclined to.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, we had a conversation before, you never know who is watching. Like on YouTube, sometimes I get people who contact me and I'm like, I've never even like had a conversation with you. You're not on my newsletter. I don't know. But then they see the business clinic pass by, whether it's on YouTube or it's on LinkedIn. So you never know, because some people feel not comfortable as well coming on the business clinic, because for me, that is a non-negotiable, that it is public. Like I take my time to prepare them. So I also need to get something out of it. So some people will tell me, okay, I'm not comfortable with having my face there. But that's, that's the deal as well. So
because you share the recording, don't you?
Yes, I do. I share the recordings. Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay, next questions. Comments about your own stuff, questions about your own thing.
Or other questions. I mean,
yeah,
there's two topics, but if you have other questions.
I was going to ask you, and I guess maybe you've covered it a little bit, but what happens if you say, yeah, I'm going to run this clinic and nobody shows up? What do you do?
And you just, in the beginning, that's what happened with me. So I would just invent questions. So I would just say, oh, so this one asked me this question or this question, because you have the time in your agenda anyway. So that's, I would take the question, like the most asked questions of my book coaches, or just even sometimes, you go on internet and you see that book coach asks that question. So that's how I would, I think I've had it once or twice in my business clinic where no one showed up. And then it's just like, okay, I'm just recording this like this with the questions. I'm talking a little bit about this or this. I take one question and make it a little presentation. Just to have that, it becomes just recording a video at that point if there's no one that showed up for the business clinic. But it will happen now. So yeah. No, sorry.
When you were just starting out, did you get people to submit their questions prior so you had a chance to think about it, or you've always just run with it?
I did that before, but then the issue I realized is that becomes really opening the door to brain pickers. Because I had someone, for example, and she would send me 10 to 12 questions for every business clinic. So I said, like, no, I cannot, I cannot even answer to 10, 12 questions. So let alone, because of course, I wanted to reply to them. So I was replying to them. I was like, I'm taking an hour to reply to this person, and she doesn't even want to show up for the business clinic. So at a minimum, you sign up for my newsletter and you come to the business clinic for your question. So now, no, I'm no longer do it, because that's a bit a tricky thing when you do this kind of free coaching sessions. You have to have very, very clear about your boundaries, what you can and what you cannot accept. But then it depends on your audience. If you say like,